Mutakepi. Chantewa na pe chusa alako ya wakia wanata na machia wachichu ya Remle machia ya waslaha and mataha ina Donna Harrison chia ate Charles Remle chia unchi Dorothy Nadine Way and Dorothy Harrison of Ichakia Lala Colonel Harrison and Herbert Remle of Ichakia Tukashila wakantata betukile lila wopila tanka tukashila betukile unyaku picha wopila unkinichia tukashila wakantanka champu luta ogna omani chipicha onkiapo na yuha lila wopila tanka tukashila. Good morning. Thank you everybody for allowing us to come be here today. My Lakota name is Wǝጡ English name is Remle. I see a lot of really awesome people here today. When we heard that we were initially going at 9, we thought maybe like 3 people here. Dang, like, food folks are hardcore, so this is awesome. I'm from Standing Rock. I was letting you know who my parents and grandparents are, and asking for assistance as we're all trying to walk this Champu Luta, this red road, and giving thanks for this day. Just doing quick intros. We'll jump into the film here in a second that Mikayla will intro. But first, pass out to my Tanashi, George here.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How's everybody doing today? Thank you guys for being here. I'm grateful to be here. My name is George Farrell. As an introduction said, I'm from Standing Rock, and comes from Little Eagle. My Lakota name is Sicholo Mato, and that means barefoot of bear. So we'll be here with you guys.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. My name is Heaton. I know you guys already got introduced to us, but I'm a Muckleshoot tribal member, and I'm also a descendant of the Duwamish people. My family's villages actually were right along where the Lake Union area is, and also the area we also know as Pike Place Market, also down along the Black River, which is now Renton. My mother is Catherine Arquette, my father is Raleigh Heaton, and I come from the Siddle family, and so I'm honored to be here with all of you today. So good morning.
Hello everyone, my name is Mikayla Gingrey. I am the granddaughter of Sherry Gingrey, the daughter of Martin Gingrey. And I come from a pretty long line of single moms, strong matriarchy, and I'm super proud to be a part of that. Also super honored to be sharing the stage with these activists that became my friends and mentors throughout this project. So today we are going to be screening one of the episodes of Facing the Storm that is focused on tribal food sovereignty. So Matt and I, and Richard, we've been working together for like the past 2 years on this film series, which has been kind of crazy to see how time flies. But when we started this project, we wanted to focus on climate justice from the indigenous perspective. And we're like, there's so much to talk about. Where do we want to focus? So we spent a lot of time in that first year interviewing, talking to people, building relationship. And one of the key themes that came up was food. Almost in every single conversation we had, food was at the core. And a lot of times, however, I feel people in this room get the connection. But a lot of times people don't make the connection between food sovereignty and climate change, and how when climate changes, that shortens the time of harvesting periods and access to foods that are a part of traditions and a part of culture. So we're super excited to show this film to you all, and then afterwards we're going to be doing a little bit of talk to dive into it, as this is only a 15-minute short film. I'm telling you, we could have made 3+ episodes of this. So we're excited to jump in. So without further ado, Tribal Food Sovereignty episode.
she doesn't need us, but we 100% need her. You can't talk about ceremony without talking about the plants. You can't talk about how homes were built without talking about, plants and medicines. And so tribal food sovereignty is connected to the land. That's one relationship that Native people had with the land, was understanding, what she provided. And I think when we think about climate change, without the bees and without, the plants, like, we don't sustain. Our reservation in particular is separated by two rivers, the Green River and the White River, and the salmon, run through, the White River, and our people have fished for as long as we've been there. Our first foods is salmon, and so without these first foods, we lose our identity as the people of, these lands. And that goes for every tribe that depends on the salmon that flow through all of these rivers and these waters. If we don't address climate issues, we actually can't do these practices. And our culture is defined by these practices of gathering and harvesting foods. The two and two go together hand in hand.
Food brings people together, and not only that, but the food that we use in our traditional practices or ceremonial practices and things like that, those are, foods that we've been eating for, centuries. If you could imagine a puzzle, food sovereignty being in the middle with our medicines, our traditions, our cultures, our base of, humans in general, and taking that and mixing it all up. That's where we're at. Being able to put those pieces back together, one community at a time, one, organization at a time, and, to be able to just understand what food sovereignty can really do. That's a dream. To really transform things, like, as a people, not just as Indian people, but as a people, and to see the value in that. That's something that I look forward to. That's something that is within reach. Being from the plains, one of our first staples of food was the buffalo. The way that we would clean the animal ourselves and use that food from farm to table, and there's so much relationship, there's connection, there's, in our way, we call it medicine, there's so much medicine in that.
Earlier this year, we harvested a buffalo, and we even got to invite some of the schools there. And so, like, a lot of, like, 3rd grade to, like, 6th grade, around that age, they all came in and they got to be a part of it, being able to show them, like, the process of breaking it down and what, like, each part of the buffalo is used for. Like, the bones, you use them for tools, or you could even use them for bone broth. And that's real good for, like, pregnant women, elders, people who are sick. You could make the bone broth and just put whatever else you want in it for soup, and you can just give the broth itself to them, not has a lot of nutrients itself in it.
We have a saying in our language, and in the people, in our language is mitakuye oras. And in the language that means mitakuye that means my relatives. Oyasin is like, it encompasses everything. We have songs for the food, we have songs for the water. When we use those first foods, those first medicines, the water, the buffalo and those types of things, that is a part of our original self. If we are separated from the land, or separated from the food, we don't know where we come from.
Over the past 8 years, so we've actually grown and ramped up our services we provide for the kitchen and meals we provide, whether it's traditional, elk meat, buffalo, or anything, salmon. Eating connects us all. I think every culture around the globe, right? That's one of the cornerstones of the society is getting together, breaking bread. And when you do that, you're in touch with each other. You come together, and you also come together with your ancestors, and being able to do that, reconnect with our ancestors and with each other in a proud way, and reconnecting with our own cultures and our own places, our homelands. It's vital. It's vital in the recovery of the traumas that we've endured. Food is a big part of our ceremonies. Usually close out with that feast. We provide a spirit plate, right? We put that out. That's another big thing, right? We feed the ancestors, literally, right? Our memorial walk is actually a ceremony, right? We come together, we cleanse, we pray, sing songs, shed tears with one another, and we march. And we march so that they're not forgotten and that's remembered. We lose too many people, too many of our brothers and sisters out there in the streets every year. And it's just really memorializing them and a chance for all us, to say goodbye in a good way, in a healthy way, and send them off on a journey in the right way. We feed everybody that was part of the march, and everybody who happens to be in that area that wants a free meal. I grew up in the city, I've never been native. Grew up on food stamps, I grew up on processed foods. And no connection, really. I guess, growing up, though, you don't realize how much you miss out, or you don't really know how important vital that is until you start actually putting that in your body. When I started reconnecting with my spirit, when I got sobered up and cleaned up, and started getting reconnected with my culture, my ceremony, and started taking those things in, both spiritual stuff and actual food, and putting that and giving my body that, I can tell the difference. It processes better, more energy, more sustainable energy, no highs and lows of like crashing and stuff like that. So just the health benefit of eating those traditional foods is phenomenal. But there's a reconnection, knowing that your ancestor, knowing that's what you were supposed to eat, knowing that's what you were biologically designed and made to actually to feed off of.
Restaurants that does have not only indigenous foods like from specific to this area, but from other cultures, whether that be salmon, whether that be bison, whether that be wild rice. We bring those things in dishes that we sell here. We also have the tools, that people would need, like the recipes, and they want the stories, if they want to know where everything came from, and just helping people get the access to things that they need in order to get back to some of our traditional foods. You can see like the warmth on their face, the smiles in their face, and the joy in their heart. They're like, oh my gosh, I haven't had that in so long since I was a little kid. Like this just reminds me of home, and the smell just reminds me of home, and the music, the artwork, the environment just reminds me of home. It's not just food that's on the table. Like you're coming more for an experience. You're coming to be a part of a community. You're coming to engage in the community and have those smells, those tastes, and that energy just envelop you and just go back to was where it started. Being taken away from that out of my village was difficult. It was difficult for me. It was difficult for me to find the foods that I grew up with. It was difficult for me to find the community that I grew up with. But having this space here for urban youth, such as myself, it brings that space together. It brings all those dynamics together. It puts us to the forefront. It puts us out there. It puts us in the eye of people walking by, of people who come in here to try something new, to step out of their comfort zone. We are one of the only parks that has an open door to the public, an open door for them to come and experience us, experience in different food, experience in different environments.
High in vitamins and minerals, and so we would be able to make basically a trail mix or to-go foods, and so we would mix it's called wasna, but it's like a mixture of either berries, meat, and fat, and so you have all of the things your body needs: the fat, the carbs, and the protein. And so we would take these when we go on hunting parties, and we wouldn't need to stop anywhere because we would have this nutrient-dense food that we could eat, just a handful, and it'd sustain us for the whole day. The government came in and said we're building this hydroelectric dams, and so they're building these we're going to produce electricity, And so we're gonna build this, but they said you can either sign this and get possibly something in return, or you don't sign it and you get nothing. And so there's a picture that you can Google of, I believe his name was George Gillette at the time. He was our chairman, and they're doing the construction of Garrison Dam. And so you could see these legislatures signing this document. He's in the background, and he's crying because he knew what that meant for our people. That once they built this dam, it's going to flood all our homelands and destroy our, where we would gather certain plants, food, and things like that. And so when they built that, it did destroy a lot of our natural plants along the Missouri River. It flooded them out, and then there's a few plants that you can't even find that were once there because they just got destroyed. A lot of our people have been trying to replenish those food sources, and so they'll get some seeds and they'll plant them here and there, and they'll kind of reintroduce them to the land and things like that. And so we're trying our best to fight the effects of global warming. And I know within these past few years it's been really hot back home. And so like even some of our plants that would have a longer window to gather, a lot of them would dry up a lot sooner, so we have a shorter window to gather some of our food. I try to teach not only him but my other kids as well that mindset of being mindful of other people. Like we'll be at a place and we'll have a lot of choke cherries or things like that, and we'll be like, we're only gonna be able to use this much this year. There's no need to get more unless we're getting it for somebody else. Unless we're gonna gift it to somebody or do things like that. And so my son is always down to go with me wherever I go. Like the night before, he'll be like, I think I'm gonna stay. And then in the morning I'll be like, actually I wanna go with you. And he'll jump up, get ready, but he's always been right beside me when doing these things. We may come from different tribes, different areas, but we're all Indigenous people, and we have to work together as one to be able to uplift each other.
I ended up working for my culture department for my tribe, and started working with other organizations to get like folks like out on hikes and moving and everything. And I got the opportunity to start taking our youth who work in the forest, making it relatable to what they're doing. Like, you know, Salal is about endurance, and hawthorn is heart medicine. Nettles are, you know, just whatever lesson is with those plants and making it relatable, then you can get them to try it. Like, I want to be better in endurance, so what can I make with Salal? This most recent class we did was infusing our traditional plants in vinegars, and then having the conversation of like, knowing what we put in our bodies by making these things. We did cooking salts, and we had nettles and sage and lavender and wild rose and all of our plants, and then giving those out to community and having them also come in and make them also allows them to learn to identify the plants and create a relationship with the plants and maybe make their own combinations.
We're blessed because we have a lot of the culture. We have a lot of the language. We have, you know, first person fluent speaker. You can go somewhere and get some help. You know what I mean with those things. So it'll be like, I'm trying to, you know, harvest a buffalo, or, you know, go and pick tinsel. Tinsel is like a turnip, you know, and bring those things from the earth. There's probably somebody that can help you do that, and that can teach you in the language. If we're going to teach these kids on how to do this, we need to be a pillar in that ourselves. It starts with the next generation, but how do we get the next generation to speed? You know, we make that a priority in our own lives. When we understand how the food is a way of us and a way of our traditions, it's recognizing about more than just food. That is something that bonds everybody together, that bonds, you know, all of our ceremonies together. You can't have these ceremonies without a couple different things. You can't have it without the medicines, the water. You can't have it without the food. You can't have it without the people, you know, the songs. You know, there's many different prongs to that. It's incorporated in everything that we do as, you know, tribal people, as Indigenous people. You know, it's part of everything we do.
Get to know one plant, you know, and build a relationship with that plant. Learn its benefits, learn the medicine it carries. You know, we have so many
plants that truly are medicines. Tribal food sovereignty can be brought into, our classrooms, it can be brought into our homes, our workplaces. Those are some of the ways that, I get to, bring that into the space that allows us to sustain our culture and our identity and our connection to the land.
This is our second screen. Our first one was actually up in Kalela at the Hip-Hop Cultural Center. A couple of years ago, a mutual friend reached out to me and said, I know this awesome young lady who's doing, why the feedback, gone to film school and has an interest in sharing the stories of those kind of on the front lines facing the climate crisis. And they weren't necessarily involved in some of that type of work, so they asked, there was a fellowship opportunity. They asked, would you take her on, mentor, and work with her on this project? I said, maybe. I didn't know them at that point. Plus, I wanted to meet Mikayla first, primarily to hear what it is that she was looking to do, what the goals were, because all of us in this room know that a lot of times our stories can get exploited by colleges, by nonprofits, by cities, and other folks like that. So I wanted to see what her thinking was behind this project. And so I got to meet both Mikayla and Mom over there filming. Yes. And that in itself, when she showed up with her mom, I was like, okay, they're going to be a good person coming in here with their mom. And, she explained kind of the thinking of what she wanted to do. It was really to just not only share a story, but to get back to tribes themselves and to also embed into educational systems, not to make documentaries to go out and make profit off of or any of that. And so I said, all right, I'm down. Because I also knew that part of that mentoring was meaning that a lot of the relationships, a lot of the folks you see, we're now got 4 episodes done, one on the way with these awesome Snoqualmie folks sitting here in the room. Will be our 5th episode. It's based on relationships, so that's accountability. So this project has ended up being a very beautiful experience. We've gone out to Quinault and filmed with them, their chairman, and with Fawn and others around relocating to Hola due to rising sea levels. A very beautiful experience. We've been up to Swale First Nation up in British Columbia with the George family and who are fighting the Trans Mountain Pipeline, of which will directly impact all of us down here, because if that pipeline, that tar sands pipeline is built, we're going to see massive oil tankers coming through these waters up into not just the Port of Vancouver, but into Anacortes, and to put on these oil tankers. One of the refinery areas that they plan on stopping at is down in Tacoma, on Gallup lands, and along the west coast before it goes overseas to Asian markets. So it'll have a devastating impact to fish and everything that we love reclaiming our traditional foods, but if these corporations and stuff do what they keep doing, then we ain't gonna have no fish. Out in the plains where we're from, we've already seen what's happened to our, it's a campaign of genocide when they were exterminating us because they couldn't beat us militarily, that they slaughtered the bison or the pate oyate as a means of war. And so you got to do whatever you can to protect the waters, protect the lands now.
before that extinction or that near extinction comes. We've also, obviously the food sovereignty, dive a little into divestment. The plan is, I've already reached out to, one of the plans I should say, Willardville with OSPI, Office of Native Ed, and we're looking to embed a number of these into the since time immemorial tribal sovereignty curriculum, so it can go across state of Washington. So I just wanted to provide a little bit of background and but really turn it over to the folks here. So whoever wants to go first. We'll go Rachel.
Rachel's up.
Try this if you want.
I might use it out. So again, good morning, everyone. Thank you, Matt, for the background and for all of you for getting to witness some of the work that we all get the privilege to do. And I say privilege because not everyone has a platform to have these conversations. I have done a lot of work in the climate justice area, and to be able to come into another platform and have these conversations is really what it's about. We have to share our stories through different platforms to share that knowledge. And actually, I would say my work with plants actually started with my climate justice work. I was over at Standing Rock. I was traveling back and forth. I was over there when they were shooting at us with water cannons at sub-zero temperatures by militarized police. My children were over there, and it was about protecting Mother Earth, protecting the land. And, while there was a lot of focus, on those lands that we were on, when that fight was over, that fight gave a lot of us purpose. And when that fight ended, a lot of us came back home and, still wanted to find ways to help. And for myself, I started realizing that while a lot of us were fighting for the land, we weren't necessarily connected to the land. And I came back with serious depression. I actually quit my job of 20 years. I worked in education, and I really wasn't sure what I was going to do. And my cousin, Willardville, was working for our tribal cultural program, and during that time he knew that I needed something to pull me out of what I was going through. And he said, well, why don't you come work for me? And it was temporary. There was nothing you could do to get me to sit behind a desk ever again. I was way past that. And so he actually teamed me up with a master weaver, Gail White Eagle, and she took me in, and I literally harvested hundreds of trees and split tons of cedar bark. Like, I spent months and months just working with cedar. That was the only thing I got to touch. It was the only tree I got to learn about. But then I got the opportunity to start going out, and I started learning about the plants and the connection. And as with someone with a background, I used to be a competitive bodybuilder, and I used to own a gym. And so nutrition and working out was always really important to me. And what I would do is I started realizing how those things were actually tied to those areas. But we know these really colonized versions of it, going to the gym and doing squats and doing sit-ups and all of these things, but they were actually functional movements. Our people were hunting, they were gathering, they were carving canoes, they were sitting, which was squatting, they were bending over, which was, doing a deadlift. And I'm like, wait a second, I could actually take these movements and take them outside. And so what I started doing was realizing how I could take my fitness area, because that was also my mental health. That was my way to navigate my mental health. I didn't realize how much nature was going to heal me in those areas yet. So I was using those ways to really help me heal. I started going out and I started learning about our nettles and our organ grape and our salao and our horsetail, and learning not now about these supplements that are going to help me, but these plants that are going to help me in those same ways. So now I can use horsetail, and that's going to help my hair when I'm competing, and it's going to help my skin and my nails, and I can use salao for endurance, and I can use I can use our berries for vitamin C, and just all of these different ways. So I started applying them. But then I found out coming back from Standing Rock, that I was pregnant with my son, and very unplanned, again, very hard time in my life. I was going through some depression, and again, I was forced out of the gym. And so there went my mental health, because I was like, oh my gosh, what am I gonna do? I can't go to the gym. And so I was like, wait a second. He can be my resistance, which is my weights, and hiking is going to be my cardio. So I started taking those movements and being able to heal my body in that way. And so our first hike was when he was 6 months old. I've done some hiking before, but not anything in any depth. Took him out, and our hikes got longer and longer and longer. But then we started going out on the mountain. We started going to, out to Mount Tahoma. And what we started realizing is I don't see myself out there. I don't see my people out there. And I didn't see any of the folks from the various tribes. I didn't see anyone from Yakima or Cowlitz or Puyallup or Nisqually or any of the tribes. And so I'm like, wait a second, if we're not out here, that means our knowledge isn't there, our stories aren't there, and that means that our plant knowledge also isn't out there. And so it became a mission for me to get out on the mountain and do that reclaiming and creating visibility of our people being out there. And I actually found out we hadn't had any climbers or anyone on the mountain climbing in that way in modern history. And then I found out there had not been any of our women out there documented ever. And so in 2023, I put together the first team of all natives to actually attempt summiting Mount Tahoma. But it became bigger than that, because it wasn't just about us being visible, it was about bringing our traditional plants back out there. I got to smudge on the mountain, I got to bring mullein, which is really great for our lungs. And as somebody with asthma, I started using our traditional plants and our medicines to help me navigate the mountain in those spaces. So I got to bring mullein out on the mountain. And I got to bring hawthorn, which is great for the cardiovascular system and is really great for the heart. And so as somebody with asthma who feels like their heart's always about to beat out of their chest, and if you know anything about mountaineering, you probably feel like you're dying anyway. So these are all medicines, traditional plants that I was able to bring into those spaces with me, and to not only heal my body, but also reintroduce them and have these conversations with the folks that are already out in those spaces. So it became bigger also because then I got to bring the conversations of climate change and why it's important for us to be in those spaces to talk about, because when those glaciers are gone, that's our rivers, that's our water. And then it doesn't only affect native, our indigenous people, native people, because as we know, we're the first ones impacted by climate change. Our plants are impacted, our food sources are impacted. And so if we don't have those conversations, then those mountains and those spaces stay very transactional. People are just trying to reach summits, they're just trying to be in those spaces, and they lose the actual connectedness and sacredness of being out there. So now I get the chance to work with our mountaineer companies and other companies like REI and Patagonia, and educate them about being better stewards on the lands and understanding how indigenous knowledge is going to impact their businesses as well. So that's the part I want to share in terms of why tribal food sovereignty is so important in not just our communities, but also in educating other communities to understand why we need those plants, not just for our cultural sustainability, but also for everyone's sustainability. Because when we have all of those invasive plants come in, we lose our ability to have that connection, and then we lose connection to our ancestors and that knowledge. And so, and I'll just end with a funny story real quick. I got the chance with George a little over a year ago to harvest a buffalo, and I'd never gotten to do that. I'm always joking that I like plants more than people, so I hang out with the plants all the time. So when people are like, hey, I haven't seen you in forever, I'm like, I'm always with the plants, that's where I'm at, in the woods. And but I got the chance to hang out with George, and so it was funny because I had never done that kind of work, and they actually came up to me and I thought, cool, I'm gonna get to like either cut like some cool piece of meat or I'm gonna get to do something awesome. And they walked up and they handed me 2 hooves. And I was like, what do I do with the feet? What do I do with the feet? So I ended up having to take these 2 hoops home and burn hair off of them for over 2.5 hours, which is not a great smell. But turns out I actually ended up with one of the healthiest parts of the bison because I was able to make a collagen and I infused our plants into it, into the soup that I made. And it took over 14 hours to pull these nutrients out of the bison. But again, it's one of those things that we get to do when we get to add it to the work that we're doing and adding it to our tribal food sovereignty in these conversations. So I'm thankful that I get to be in such cool spaces with awesome people, and I'll turn it over to you.
Give it up for these 2 right here. I promise you, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for these 2 right here. So we give them a round of applause. There's a couple things that like we all really, if we don't know, we should know. We hear the talks about food sovereignty, like how important it is for our lifeways. But food sovereignty and like the understanding of how we are connected to the food and the land, that disconnection that is there is a direct result of colonization. And in so many ways, we're addressing some of these things up here with plants and harvesting and those types of things. And in having these conversations with the people, with the community, all of you guys are here, so clearly all of you guys have an understanding of why this is so important. And the issues that are beneath that, it's like a flowing river. And a piece of those, of that main stream of water is to disconnect us from the land. Not just Indian people, but people, all of us, to disconnect us from that. Because when we're disconnected from that, we don't have any connection to anything. Wherever you guys are from, there is a direct connection to land. And although you hear a lot of the Indian people up here talking about that and bringing these things to the light, it is also a part of your responsibility to do the same thing and to stand on the truth that you know. And I heard an interesting thing really quick. While these guys were talking about this goodness, and while we were watching this, I was thinking about a couple different stories that I've heard in doing some of this work and like being in connection with community, going to ceremonies and things like that. But one of the most interesting things was that I heard this piece on this idea that these scientists came up with, and it's called quantum entanglement. You guys know about that? Where they cut the atom and then put them in 2 different places and spun one and the other one spun at the same exact time and did the same exact thing. You know what's funny about that is the Indians have been saying that since day 1. That is a piece of our culture. But it is not until it is in a written form that it is recognized. You guys heard on the thing when we said, "Mitakuye oyas." That's what we mean. That quantum entanglement, that is just a piece that we can visually see. And all of the pieces of this food sovereignty, land back, those things are so connected on that type of level and deeper. And it's a little strange that we don't recognize it until it's written down. Because the scientist tells you that it's real. Which goes against the tribal people, because we're oral people. our values and our principles and everything that we believe in gets passed down orally. We have the elders that come up and they tell you stories about this area, about those sacred fires before this building was built. You know, that's not written. And that's how these things come to us. And we find ourselves at this forum right here. And we're in the same thing. So, you know, one other thing, the buffalo. I want to say this really quick. In doing our harvest with the buffalo people and bringing the buffalo people into where we're at, we honor the buffalo in a couple different ways. And I'll tell you, when the buffalo first came, when the creator made the buffalo, he put a little piece of everything inside of the buffalo. He put a little piece of the wakia, which is the thunder spirits. Put a little piece of that thunder beam inside the buffalo. That's why we have electricity in our bodies. He put a little piece of tate. Tate is the wind. We call it tate topa. We put a little piece of tate in there, and that's what gives us the breath. And when we take those things, you guys are familiar with how energy is distributed. When we take those things from the buffalo and we put them within ourselves, that lives. And in that same concept, when we're talking about all these things, and we're in these forums and these platforms, and we're saying, man, this is so important. We're recognizing that all the things that we have eaten, whether it's the canvas from over here, the tinsel, the buffalo, the rabbit, all of those things have been passed down for generations. That the elder that came when we were talking about the baskets, when he said that he learned this stuff from how many generations ago? From his great-great-great-great-grandma? If there isn't a living piece of why that is so important, amen, it was standing up here for everybody to see. And so, just to say on that, I want to encourage everybody to pick up this piece and to support this piece, because it's only one thing that is here, you know, that we can visually see. We can make documentaries about it, but we all understand that we're in a place of colonization, and we're in the midst of it. So, you know, that's what I got for you guys.
So thank you so much for all of that knowledge that we all shared. We would now like to open it up to just a few questions. If you have any questions, we have these beautiful, wonderful people here to share.
Questions?
Kia ora koutou, ngā mihi kia koutou. My name is Jessica, I'm from Aotearoa, and been involved in some filmmaking and some TV series as well. And I'm really interested in Indigenous story sovereignty and how we hold on to that as Indigenous peoples. And I'd like to understand how you've negotiated rights in your project, and so rights for distribution, if money's made, how's that working out?
So, my wonderful mother over there is a lawyer. So, she has better answers to that. But I think what kind of might be at the core of the question of what Matt's in the beginning, like, this project is not about making profit at the end of the day. It's about sharing it with young people, with community members. So I think it's all of our pieces of work. And like another important thing to say, I think, also my mom's idea. So you saw these three people, or Red Rock was up there too, talking. That was 15 minutes, but I have to say that almost each and every one of these interviews went from an hour to 2 hours long, you know, and those are oral histories. So we're basically creating an oral history archive library that can be accessed to anybody publicly to learn a little bit more about what they were talking about and things like that. So thank you. Oh, and here's Matt.
and actually timely, because we're in the process of that right now with Snoqualmie. And, I don't know if you want to share, but it's very much about, given it's what they say, it's what they want, running it through tribal council, developing lists of who to interview, where to interview, getting our consent forms out to us to go film in particular areas. And it's a very beautiful process. I know that they took my wife's son out looking for cedar recently, to kind of film locations. But I'm certainly not an expert in the area. We leave that on the tribal communities themselves. And if you want to share kind of what it looks like from Snoqualmie, the floor is yours.
Hi there, my name is Mikayla Gingrey, and I'm a member of the Snoqualmie tribe, daughter of Chief Andy de Los Angeles, and I was really excited when Matt and Mikayla reached out to us because there's so many things that are to be discussed, and they really wanted to reach out to us based off of the work that we've been doing with the Snoqualmie tribe Ancestral Lands Movement and how diverse that has been. And so it's been really great to work with them because we can talk about a huge range of topics and still find like these kind of gold pieces in the middle where it connects all of the episodes together. And I think that's really beautiful. I think so far the episodes look great. And I'm really excited, and also excited to have that archive of footage because it can be difficult to schedule and the logistics of getting tribal members together and on their time in a good way without rushing, but still having it be a formal, respectful process. I'm really excited to work with this team and also the fact that they've already reached out and worked with other tribes and made those relationships and maintained them. I think that's really wonderful. I look forward to all the cool stuff that we get to do. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have time for one more question.
Thank you. So you touched on this a little bit about the farm to table, and the whole time I can't stop thinking about the irony of the farm to table movement and how it's been monetized by the restaurant industry and the culinary world, and really, goes back to what you're talking about, is that tribal communities and Indigenous peoples have been doing that since the beginning of time. I guess my question is, do you see restaurateurs and chefs and culinary institutions maybe giving back some of that credit and knowledge to the public, so that it's not just those restaurants and chefs and entities that are profiting off of this farm to table, because I feel like it's a stolen concept, and just wanted to get your thoughts on that.
I'm just going to speak on my personal experience. Working with my fellow plantellas and folks that are doing that. I feel like it hasn't quite moved yet to mainstream restaurants in that, because Indigenous people are doing their best to hold that knowledge themselves and be the voice, because as we know, our voices aren't big enough yet. I mean, we're just now seeing us holding very important legislative seats. We're, the first, we see the first television shows. We're just seeing a lot of firsts right now. So I feel like a lot of Natives are being the voice to actually, get that knowledge out there. And so I would hope to see more mainstream chefs. I know you all got to see Valerie Seacrest yesterday, and how cool it was to have her show that I feel like those are the directions that we need to go, is hearing it from Indigenous voices specifically, not having people. I was just joking about with Mikayla. I was like, we're not doing the National Geographic approach, so we don't need someone to come in and speak for us. We have that knowledge. So I believe that right now a lot of natives are opening their own restaurants, their own food trucks, their own, they're selling their own, food sources. And so not moving it beyond that yet, because we get to be that voice right now. And so, yeah.
Also, just to say like a little bit more of like that farm to table-esque thing, it was talked about a little bit in the film, they're not here today, but definitely check out, I believe it's pronounced the Halal Cafe at Chief Seattle Hub. They have a lot of great food options. So yeah, go support them.